Hello and welcome back to the British History course. Last time we left off with Harold Godwinson successfully defeating Harold Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. William, meanwhile, had been waiting with his army in Normandy, preparing to cross the English Channel, but the wind direction had prevented this. However, on the 27th of September, there was a strong southerly wind, which allowed him and his army to cross. He made landfall at Pevensey Bay and set up some pre-packed wooden forts in the area, which he had prepared in Normandy. Harold heard of this on the 1st of October whilst in York, and immediately marched his army south to London, where he would quickly rebuild his forces. After all of this marching and fighting, his army was absolutely exhausted. However, instead of waiting in London, Harold marched his army further south to Senlac Ridge, 11.2 kilometres away from Hastings. William then marches his own army to face Harold's for the climactic Battle of Hastings. So, Harold is on top of a ridge with an army of 6,300 men. He positions most of his elite housecarl warriors in the centre of his army, flanked by his lesser quality peasant freed. Whilst the Saxon forces are made up exclusively of infantrymen, they have a formidable shield wall providing excellent protection. Then, at the bottom of the hill, William prepares his assault with his 6,000-man strong army. His force is comprised of infantrymen, archers, and the latest weapon in European warfare, the mounted knight. His men also originate from Brittany and Flanders, as well as Normandy. The battle begins with the Norman forces being 137 metres away from and 15 metres below the Saxon shield wall. William had split his forces into three groups: the Flemish on the right, the Normans in the centre, and the less reliable Bretons on the left. Then, at 9 o'clock, he ordered his men to advance up the ridge. The archers led the way and fired upon the Saxon ranks, but to little effect. Following this, the Norman forces crashed into the Saxon shield wall, but it could not be broken. This continued until at about 10 o'clock, the Bretons on the left side of William's army broke and fled down the hill. The Saxons chased after them, but having broken formation and therefore having lost their shield wall, they became easy targets for the Norman cavalry, and so were cut down. After this though, William ordered his forces to withdraw back down the ridge. 2 more attacks took place that day, until eventually the Saxon shield wall began to crumble and eventually broke. Shortly after this, most of the peasant freed fled the battlefield, leaving the housecarls to fight on alone with their king. The final nail in the coffin for the Saxons' cause was when Harold himself was killed on the battlefield, probably due to an arrow in the eye, as depicted in the Bayeux Tapestry. So why did the Normans win the Battle of Hastings? Firstly, the Normans had a greater variety of soldiers in their ranks, as the archers were able to decimate the lightly armoured freed, and the Norman knights were able to cut down any out-of-formation Saxon troops with ease, and additionally could quickly and devastatingly exploit any fault in the Saxon line. Furthermore, excellent leadership also aided William to him achieving his victory, as it was he who led the cavalry to cut down the Saxon forces, who were chasing the Bretons back down the ridge. Moreover, he also showed a great deal of courage throughout the battle. At one point, after rumours of his death, he even took off his helmet in the middle of the fighting and cried out to his men, showing that he was still alive. It must be said though, that luck played a large part in this Norman victory. William was lucky that Harold Hardrada had also invaded just prior to his own invasion, and the long and fast marches that Godwinson had to make severely tired and weakened the Saxon forces. The Battle of Hastings was the only major engagement William had to ordeal in order to secure the English throne. Gradually, all of the other Saxon nobles pledged allegiance to him, and so William was crowned on Christmas Day 1066 at Westminster Abbey in London. William did though face rebellion from the Anglo-Saxons, such as in Exeter in 1067 and in Northumbria in 1068 and 1069. There was even an invasion of England, sponsored by the Dane king Sweyn II. William, though, was able to deal with the Danes by paying them off to leave the country, and was able to crush all the other uprisings. Ultimately, to prevent any other rebellions, in the winter of 1069 to 1070, William began a campaign against the north of England, which became known as the Harrying of the North. This action, which resembled genocide, involved the destruction of crops and settlements, as well as the slaughtering of the inhabitants of these areas. Conditions were so bad in the following famine that there were even reports of cannibalism. This action, though, was at least successful for William, as after this, the amount of rebellions quickly declined. But why are the events of 1066 so important and so well remembered? Not only is it a great narrative of several factions vying for control of England, but it has had many great implications for the British Isles that have echoed throughout the centuries. Most clearly, it marked the end of the Saxon dynasty and ushered in the royal family that has ruled England all the way up to the present day. However, more importantly, the Norman invasion brought feudalism to England. This system of governance, with each social class providing and receiving certain services to and from the other levels of society, would form the foundation for life in Britain until the 10 Years Abolition Act in 1660. Personally though, I believe that the most important consequence of the Norman conquest was that it broke England's links with Scandinavia. This allowed the island nation to become a major player in the events of continental Europe, a role that it has continued to fulfill to this day. That concludes our look at the Norman conquest of England in 1066. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button, and thank you for watching the Great British History course. See you next time.